You awaken to a dimly lit table with nothing but a pair of eyes visible across from you. The mysterious figure greets you as a new challenger. They haven't seen one in a long time. They show you how to play a card game, allowing you to beat them this time. You're still learning after all. The figure unrolls a map in front of you with various unfamiliar symbols connected by dotted lines on its aged and rough parchment surface. A carved wooden figure representing you is placed at the beginning of the path. The pair of eyes staring at you begin to paint a picture of your story. You were lost, deep in the forest. A single path revealed itself. With nowhere to go but forward, you indulge this dungeon master in their game of cards, although many questions are already racing through your mind. You have been promised that the path that remains in front of you will not be an easy one, nor do you know what will happen to you if you fail at the dungeon master's game. This is Inscryption. Inscryption is bar none my favorite game of 2021. Daniel Mullins has masterfully crafted an experience beyond simply a deck-building eldritch horror-themed indie title, and it has captivated me and so many others as he deserves. Inscryption has such a chokehold on me that I played the entire game, for me around 10 hours, in a single day, and thanks to the amazing KAYCEE'S mod expansion that has been added and transforms the game into an endless, brutally hard deck-building roguelike, doesn't seem it'll be letting up anytime soon. Quick context. KAYCEE'S mod is titled that way due to lore reasons. It is official by Daniel Mullins and is still in beta, so keep that in mind when we get into it later in the video. I'm going to be discussing the game largely spoiler-free because I genuinely think people should play this game, so past a certain point I will be timestamping spoilers so you can avoid them if you want to go in blind, which I recommend. So let's get into this absolute rabbit hole of an experience. As I've established, Inscryption's gameplay is mostly a deck-building roguelike gameplay loop. One might say it's like the Dark Souls of deck-building games. Thank you. No, you're too kind. Oh my god, an award? An award for me? Wow. Oh, thank you so, it really means the world, you know? I don't consider myself to be a genius, but the main gameplay works through two halves. The first being an overworld map with various event spaces on it, each represented by a symbol. These allow you to upgrade your current cards, expand your deck, gain items, permakill cards with unique abilities to transfer them to another card, and much, much more. The other half of the gameplay is through encounter spaces. The battle system is very similar to Yu-Gi-Oh!, of course with tons of unique flavor added in here. You use your deck and items that you've gotten and upgraded through the map to take on the different scenarios the game throws at you. There are 3 types of encounters on the map: regular, totem, and boss. Totem encounters are battles in which the Dungeon Master has a totem active throughout. Totems grant a sigil to all cards of the same kin. Kins are visible in the top left of cards, and can lead to some unique and challenging gameplay variation as it is random which kin and sigil are going to be used by the Dungeon Master. The last type is boss encounters. Bosses usually have a gimmick or two to make them more challenging and add fun twists to the regular encounter style. The battle system is snappy, super easy to grasp, and fun. I can't stress enough how flawless it is. The amount of room you're granted to experiment with the various mechanics the game offers creates endless variation and allows you to play however you like. It's fantastic. There are 4 total bosses to defeat through the Dungeon Master's game. The goal is to make it to the very end and finally best the figure that has been pulling the strings throughout this game. Now, what happens if you fail? If your second candle is snuffed out, the Dungeon Master reaches their hands towards you and the screen fades to black. You awaken in another dark room, unfamiliar to you, only lit by infrequent flashes of light. The Dungeon Master tells you you're not dead yet, before asking you to help create a memento to remember you by. A death card. You select various attributes from the cards in your deck, completing a unique new card. You give it your name, but something is missing. A picture. The figure pulls out a camera, takes your photo, and with a flash of light, you're at the table once more. A new challenger. The loop has begun again, but something is a little different. You might come across a memento of a failed challenger somewhere along the map that lays in front of you. This is Inscryption's clever and thematically appropriate way of difficulty scaling. If you happen to absolutely suck and are horrible at video games, unlike me, you'll definitely stack up a few broken death cards to help you make it farther and farther through your runs. But What happens if you do defeat the Dungeon Master? Well, there's so much to say about Inscryption. The gameplay is truly outstanding. Yes, many event spaces on the map have elements of RNG, but I never found it to feel unfair. Any randomness is in favor of inspiring the player to work with what they are given into their strategy and plan out routes you wish to take on the map in advance to keep your deck strong and suit your style of play. It always keeps itself interesting with the amount of mix-ups that sigils can add into gameplay as well as totems. It's truly so incredibly fleshed out, it could easily be made into a real card game with very minimal tweaking required, which is an amazing achievement itself. Another standout feature of the game is its presentation. Everything from the dark, unsettling, yet beautifully made visuals to the contrastingly realistic sound effects to the almost comforting, spooky OST is just perfection. The eldritch-styled psychological horror the game ensnares you in transports you into its world so brilliantly through these elements. There's an incredible amount of distinct style and flavor to Inscryption. One of my favorite examples is how the Dungeon Master will don various masks, taking on new personas to simulate the character you're supposed to be interacting with at the time. The way the game has you asking questions, all while accepting what's in front of you with no context, only dropping little hints about what any given mystery could mean, is frankly genius. You want to know more from the start, but you have to keep playing the Dungeon Master's game to even begin to piece together why you're here, who they are, where these cards in the game came from, and who you are. It is not a feat easily accomplished in storytelling, yet Mullins has done it flawlessly. Every little oddity has a meaning, every persona the Dungeon Master takes on has a story, and every mystery does have an answer. This isn't like one of those indie horrors where lore is just thrown in there with no care for if it even makes any sense, simply to artificially spark intrigue without much real substance or assembly of a cohesive narrative.
Was that the bite of 87?
This is meticulously planned out, and you will be surprised just how deep everything goes. At an early point in the game, the Dungeon Master asks you to get up and grab something for them. Here, you are introduced to the room you've been in all along. A dim cabin, dingy and filled with various objects around, and an ominous rhythmic white flashing coming from a locked door. The first thing you may notice is a safe. You can interact with it, but you don't know the code to open it. You might wander around a bit more before you sit back down to continue with the loop, but now things are definitely more interesting. The Dungeon Master lets you know that whenever the map is unrolled, you're free to walk around, but not to touch their possessions. This is where the game truly begins. An entire puzzle room is now available for you to access nearly whenever you wish. The solutions to said puzzles can be found through exploration, playing the Dungeon Master's game, using certain items in specific ways, and maybe even paying close attention to your stoat, which all of a sudden begins speaking to you. Through solving these puzzles, you may find new cards, items for use in the Dungeon Master's game, and even key items that may help you escape the purgatory loop you found yourself trapped in. Now, this is nothing short of fantastic. The cabin itself adds so much to the atmosphere of Inscryption just on an aesthetic level, let alone the fact it serves the gameplay purpose of a puzzle room. It truly blew my mind the first time I stood up and realized what was around me the whole time. The amount of secrets to be discovered is insane. MatPat from Game Theory would simply love this. Some discoveries are needed to progress, and some are possible to miss entirely, yet they're all brilliant. The gameplay never gets stale, as you're always chasing the next solution to a puzzle while trying to make it as far as you can in the game to hopefully find another secret or hint that may rear its head. There are so many oh my god moments where a solution will click in your head, or you may accidentally do something that reveals key information or tools to you that the inspiration to keep playing simply does not die, and very largely contributed to me absolutely marathoning this game. The cabin really does such a massive service to this game that I cannot understate it. It drives home the fact that everything in Inscryption is done with intent and executed with grace. Also, the stoat has mad zingers for real. Boy, if you don't get— Before I begin this section of the video, I'd like to encourage you to play through Inscryption if you have not. I'll put a timestamp right now where you can skip to if you want to avoid any spoilers. Spoilers end at part 8 under the chapters section. But please do play this amazing game without spoilers. For those that have played, let's continue. At this point, you've met 3 cards that speak to you. They don't necessarily get along, however they have worked together to guide you in the direction of escaping this cabin. You found a few important items, had interactions with the dungeon master that indicate how the cards you play with came to be, and realized possible opportunity for escape. You've noticed oddities here and there. A voice you don't recognize, speaking audibly, commenting on what is happening, yet this person is not present in the actual game. You have a few death cards to your name by now, and you've made it to the final boss. The map is small here, one event stop before the boss who appears to be inside a cabin. You walk towards the lit cabin door through a very dark forest to be met with the dungeon master's eyes hovering above it, only for darkness to soon take over your vision. Your vision returns to normal once more. You can see nothing but the dungeon master's eyes until candlelight reveals his face. He appears to just be an old man. He moves back into darkness for your last game. Utilizing the gimmicks from every boss encounter, this encounter is a tough yet extremely fun and theatrical one. Nearing the end, the old man gets desperate to win and continue this cycle with you, photographing and turning the moon into a card using his camera and magic film. You defeat him. Darkness once again. A screen of you and the old man in front of some kind of pile of meat with candles in it. The faceless voice appears again.
Oh my, I think I just made him!
We see a brief glimpse of a real-life room until we're brought to a new screen. Cam works. Here, we meet the voice. Here, we meet ourselves. Enter Luke Carter. We watched through the video available to us. Raw footage for Luke's YouTube channel, The Lucky Carter. Opening packs of playing cards for his audience to see. For this video, it's a few packs of catch monsters. Judging by how it seems he's made a career out of this, it seems his channel is doing far better than mine. The first video is just establishing Luke and what he does, but the second video is where things get interesting. This time, Luke is opening Inscryption packs, supposedly vintage as if the game is from a long time ago. One of the packs seems to have already been opened and contains a card defaced with coordinates near him. Luke follows those coordinates and discovers a floppy disk buried in the woods, a floppy disk of the game we have been playing. These videos end where we started the game, with him opening the game and hitting continue on the start screen. Camworks is closed, and the camera Luke is recording on focuses back in on the present, with us sitting at the table with the old man and the pile of delicious looking meat. The old man brings you into the back room to take another death card of you, not wishing for the game to end. However, this time you stop him with his own camera and a spare roll of film you found. He has become a card. A fitting fate for him. You turn to see the source of that white flashing you recognize. A new game icon, which may turn out has a little bit more meaning than just starting the loop over again. You grab it and are in near pitch black until you go to the start screen and press that icon. What an interesting reveal for the narrative of this game. Somebody should really let MatPat know about this. I really need to see what MatPat has to say. I simply haven't experienced anything like it before. It's hard to put into words the feeling when that Camworks screen pops up for the first time. Shock and awe for sure, as well as so many more questions raised in your mind, not only about the lore of the game, but now about the lore of how it came to be as well. From now on, throughout the game, intermittently it will pause to do a Luke section where we review his footage and see the parallel storylines of Inscryption the game, as well as the lore inside of the game interact, and eventually come together into one by the end. It really is unbelievable how well these things manage to work together individually at first, but also come to one ending without it being messy or stupid, which bluntly with this narrative approach seems to be not very difficult. I heavily enjoyed the Luke Carter segments throughout the game, and I'm still astounded at how well Daniel Mullins was able to implement them so cohesively. Holy hell, what an aptly named button on the menu. Quite literally, a new game, and honestly just as brilliant as the first act. The in-game lore expansion we get here about Leshy, who we just spent a few hours with, meeting the Prospector, Angler, Woodcarver, and more, as well as learning about the other scribes, Grimora, PO3, and Magnificus, finally gives a bit of answers that no doubt have been going through your mind at this point. Plus, the reveal that the talking cards in Act 1 were the other 3 scribes trying to guide you into overthrowing Leshy as the primary scribe really changes how you view interactions with them in hindsight. So, Act 2 has you in a 2D RPG style, visually similar to Pokemon, and battle gameplay-wise similar to the GBA game Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards. Like, really similar. You get to start out picking one of the scribe decks to use as your starter, which each functions slightly differently from how Leshy's cards you used before do. I personally went with Grimora, and from there, you're off. Your goal here is to go around an overworld, building your deck how you like instead of through event situations, and eventually take down all 4 scribes to become the new primary scribe. I love the change up in mechanics present here. Building your deck, buying boosters, trying cards from different scribes, and adapting your playstyle to a new deck is really fun, and the change of pace, visuals, and sound design are all excellent and super smooth. The amount of secrets to find here too. Wow. Instead of having a puzzle room area, you're fairly likely to encounter them everywhere now. There are so many cool things to do in this act, many of which you could definitely miss if you were just focused on the main task at hand, but I think the game does a good job of encouraging exploration here, with many of the NPCs being familiar faces and letting you in on a bit of lore here and there, or handing you a side quest. Each dungeon per scribe also has a unique puzzle gimmick that keeps this visually more simplistic chapter from ever feeling stale throughout. In my experience, Act 2 never faltered and kept me absolutely hooked on Inscryption. It's definitely the shortest of the 3, and not as challenging as Chapter 1 due to having complete freedom over your deck, but I still really enjoyed it, and strongly feel it's a worthy follow-up to Act 1.
Hey, Queen. Girl, you have done it again. Constantly raising the bar for us all, and doing it flawlessly.
The act ends with you attempting to overthrow a scribe. However, no matter what scribe you pick, PO3 battles you as a part of his plan to take over Inscryption. Act 2 crashes, and we're greeted to a familiar CRT blue face, once more returning to a 3D style. Oh boy. Act 3. Okay, I hate to say it, but for me, Act 3 is easily the worst part of the game, and where the hold that the game had on me started to lose its grip, just a little bit. Now let me be clear, it is by no stretch of the imagination bad whatsoever. Please hear me out. Do not kill me. Do not leak my home address. Don't call my mom. But there was a noticeable dip in my enjoyment of Inscryption, and I'll break down the reasons why. The first big change I noticed was that the game's vibe had taken a sharp turn. Act 1's dark eldritch horror vibes were immediately intriguing and packed to the brim with style. Act 2 managed to successfully transition from that style to pixel art visuals with strong elements of psychological horror, never dropping that sinking feeling that something wasn't right. It was able to do this so well through the atmosphere created with the soundtrack, as well as the amount of oddities and glitches that occur throughout that section of the game. Act 3 seems to drop nearly all horror/mystery elements and intrigue, barring a few exceptions. Those being the Archivist, the Great Transcendence, Goobert, and the Mycologist fight. I simply don't think PO3 was the correct scribe to go with for Act 3. It doesn't fit in as smoothly with the established feel of the game to this point. Visually now, we also have a noticeable downgrade. Very strong color palettes were utilized in the first 2 acts that service the game incredibly while looking absolutely gorgeous, accompanied by the great hyper-stylized visuals. Act 3 is... well, I don't really know how else to describe its aesthetic other than... future? Everything is blue, basically. This is disappointing considering the section of Act 2 with PO3 had an interestingly and unsettling drab vibe reminding me of a creepy, desolate factory, which has been substituted here for, well, blue. The very repetitive yet cohesive visuals here do become a rather large issue, and I'll get into that in a second. The gameplay here is simply not as fluid as the last 2 chapters. You're now working with a larger grid, which doesn't really impact gameplay that much, but you're now stuck with using PO3's deck for the entire act, which functions using the energy mechanic that I honestly am not a big fan of at all. Your bots cost 1 to 3 energy to get out, with your energy beginning at 1 and going up 1 point per turn until you reach 6, with your current max energy replenishing at the beginning of each turn. There's no longer a sacrifice mechanic, which leaves encounters feeling as if you're literally just blocking damage with your less effective bots until you can reach 5+ energy, where you can actually get out a bot that does significant damage. The battles feel so long here, and I think it can be attributed to their inherently longer nature, as well as the blue visuals getting tired very quickly, leaving everything here feeling very samey, and frankly, it is disappointing. It's not bad, of course, but going from Wagyu steak to chuck steak is a noticeable difference, even though you're still eating steak. The way the overworld map functions is also a bizarre change to me. It's like Act 2, how you have freedom to move around as you wish, but here, certain areas will be blocked by encounters you have to clear until you reach the waypoint past them. This would be fine, but the issue comes when you reach all the waypoints and still don't really have a solid deck. Since your deck upgrades come from spending money you earn in battles, once you reach all the waypoints, you can't earn any money. And if you're like me and you didn't know you could abuse the Ouroboros mechanic, you are essentially stonewalled into throwing yourself at however many bosses you have remaining until you luck out and win. Unlike Act 2, where you can grind an encounter using the Scarecrow to upgrade your deck, Act 3 has nothing. You better ensure your deck is really solid before you reach that final waypoint, or you are going to have a very frustrating time. Since I prioritized exploration after fighting the Archivist and the Photographer, I really screwed myself over with PO3, the Mycologist, and Golly. I had no choice but continuously attempting to beat them, even though they weren't necessarily more difficult than bosses in previous acts. I was just stuck with a deck that I didn't enjoy playing and happened to not be very effective against them. And I could not do anything to rectify this, as I had reached all the waypoints by now and couldn't get any more money to spend upgrading my deck. Later in this act, your empty vessel, essentially scroll cards in this act, are upgraded to use the gem mechanic from Act 2, which is cool for buffing and debuffing cards you choose to gemify, but overall it didn't really make a large difference for me in this chapter. The escape room puzzles here are also much less interesting, barring Goobert. The captcha puzzle, which repeats twice, isn't much more than like a joke. There's no challenge or accompaniment with the card game here, it's just like a gag, I guess, which also disappointed me. Also, countdown encounters and bounties exist, and those also did nothing for me. I found them more annoying than regular encounters. Now, of course, I do have good things to say about this act. It easily has the most creative bosses of the whole game and accomplishes executing some insanely cool gimmicks. The photographer picture mechanic makes the boss feel really unique, even if super exploitable. The file deletion with the Archivist absolutely floored me. It is simply incredible. Fighting against your Steam friends and receiving/sending a custom card to and from real people playing the fight at the same time as you is just beyond cool. Even though some of you bastards definitely got a little cheeky with the cards you sent. The combo cards with the Mycologist is an excellent use of the established mechanic in real time during a battle, and creating your own rules to fight PO3 really keeps the fight interesting while causing you to play probably the most carefully you have yet in the whole game. Honestly, only great things to say about the bosses, even though I did get stuck with my garbage deck for some of them. Plus, the boss themes go so damn hard here. The story here does remain strong, focusing on the lead up to the Great Transcendence, which PO3 has been planning for some time. The interaction you have with the three scribes near the end is amazingly well written, and it's satisfying to see them all come together for the greater good and have Leshy, who you've come to know quite well by now, prevent PO3 from executing his master plan. The conclusion to Inscryption is nothing short of amazing. There's not too much to say about the gameplay here, as it's largely scripted events, but they are fantastic, and oh my god, the story conclusion. It exceeds expectations. The last-minute Grimoire Hail Mary to fully erase Inscryption and finally kill the loop leads to some incredible interactions with the remaining three scribes. It brings right back that immense grip it has had on the players from the very beginning. The unraveling of the mystery of the old data, at least to a point, is really something to behold. Playing with Grimoire and the outright Yu-Gi-Oh fight with Magnificus are both absolute spectacles and great tools for them to tell you their stories.
I summon Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck!
That's not what it does.
Roll my dice! That is what it does, Pot of Greed!
The last game with Leshy is both heart-wrenching in a way and thematically genius. At the end of the day, all he really wants to do is sit up in his cabin deep in the woods and play cards, up until his last moments where he shakes your hand and vanishes. Your final interaction with Magnificus, him crawling towards you, wishing to shake your hand before he's deleted. It's just brilliant. Finally accessing the old data, driving Luke mad. It's so unsettling all the way up until he meets his grim end. The ending of this game leaves you with your jaw on the floor. Daniel Mullins mapped out a story that won't soon leave the minds of any of its players, especially considering how the full mystery of the old data didn't end with Inscryption. Many observant fans began to find it creeping beyond the game and bleeding into our reality. Now, I'm not going to go over the ARG, as there are many other, much more concise sources to really dive into this. I'd recommend checking out the Daniel Mullins Discord. I'll link it in the description. But the solution to the old data is an ARG that Daniel Mullins has embedded in the game, with some puzzles and answers being absolutely buried in here. Digging through the game's code, a secret command prompt window, decrypting codes, year-old websites with answers, hidden secrets in the original Game Jam Inscryption proof of concept, hidden secrets in Daniel's old games, going to Daniel Mullins' real-life house for an amazing pasta dinner, and so much more. It's such a ride to read through all this stuff, and not just the answers you're given, but also the clear amount of work put into this ARG will blow you away. To put it short, the ARG fully answers most remaining mysteries found in Inscryption, such as the old data, the mysterious developer's game Funa, and reveals how we, the players, are even playing Inscryption. Okay, seriously. Somebody please tell Matt Pat about this. Wait a second. Oh, fuck.
Not that one either. Okay. This one from a previous cipher? Yeah!
You didn't even solve this. The whole ARG was done way before you covered this. Why are you pretending you figured this out? Oh my god. This is what happens when we platform theater, kids. I swear to God. Now it's time to talk about the addictingly fun, brutally difficult, and brand new official expansion to Inscryption known as KAYCEE'S mod. Utilizing the cabin and the Dungeon Master, KAYCEE'S mod transforms Inscryption into an endless deck-building roguelike that gets increasingly more difficult as you progress, and it is just as perfect in execution as it sounds. Keep in mind while I go over this that the expansion is currently described by Daniel himself as being in rough beta. Even though it's brilliant now as it is, it'll only get better from here on out, so any balancing issues or bugs you may encounter, which I've encountered very few personally, and I've played about 10 hours of this by now, are sure to be dealt with by final release. I'll leave a link in the description to instructions on how to try the beta yourself if you're interested. As established, KAYCEE'S mod takes the primary gameplay of Inscryption and expands on its gameplay loop, making it effectively endless. The first 3 maps of the game are randomized per run. Each map has a respective boss assigned to it, with the 4th final map and boss from the campaign always being at the end of a run. To make progress in this expansion, there are various difficulty modifiers you select prior to a run with point values assigned to them. You have to meet a required level of difficulty points with the modifiers and successfully complete a run to finish that challenge level. When you beat a challenge level, you are granted some unlocks such as new cards available in the game, new starter decks to choose from, and a few pieces of lore that I will not spoil. There are differences in the loop from the main campaign. As mentioned, the first 3 maps and bosses are randomized. The game is more difficult from the start and has a sharper difficulty curve throughout. Maps are much longer. There are balancing changes to the event spaces on maps, an example being that campfires can no longer grant more than 2 buffs per visit. New cards have been added. Death cards are not present. Sorry if you're bad, unlike me, who is amazing at video games. There are new items available as well as certain old ones being removed. The squirrel totem head is no longer attainable, and many more changes to help the game function endlessly and prevent techniques used in the main campaign to break the game. The cabin interior is different as well, with new puzzles available for you to solve and gain some cool rewards that will help you in future runs, with some from the campaign being removed for obvious reasons. There's also cosmetic and soundtrack customization now available to you, which is pretty cool. It's a nice little touch there. Hell yeah. These changes are all in service to the expansion and help to create an experience that is different yet familiar to the campaign, and for a rough beta, it is amazingly high quality in this early state. KAYCEE'S mod is addictive. The amazingly fun and engaging gameplay of Inscryption is truly perfect for an endless mode, and this expansion is not pulling any punches. I've fallen deeper into the rabbit hole of Inscryption beyond the main game due to KAYCEE'S mod, and that is all thanks to the fact that the base gameplay Inscryption is built off of is of incredibly high quality. It's too good. I love how this easy to grasp deck building gameplay can go so deep. You can cater to your playstyle preference when building your deck through high-stakes decision-making, effectively strategize map movements in advance, re-strategize when RNG doesn't go your way, and there's just so much here. KAYCEE'S mod requires you to think so much harder than the base game about every choice you make, card you grab, item you use, card you sacrifice, move you make in any given encounter, because if you lose, there are no broken death cards for you next time around. You have to play smarter. I can't stress enough how fun this expansion is and how it perfectly scratches that trading card game itch in my brain. Every single run is fresh and unique. It's honestly perfection, and I can't recommend it enough. Inscryption is brilliant. It's a true labor of love. Polish is present in every single corner of this game. The universe created by Daniel Mullins is enriched with gorgeous visuals, fantastic music, top-tier gameplay, and mind-blowing storytelling. It's a testament to what indie developers and creative minds are able to accomplish. If you have even the slightest interest in Inscryption, you have to try it. I promise you, you will not regret it. Even if you're into Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh!, just please play this game. You will love it. This is a game made for you. Inscryption is rare in how it exceeds being just a game. It is an experience. I know that's quite a statement, but once you play it, you'll see that I'm not exaggerating. So why not step into that cabin deep in the woods, pull up a chair, and play the Dungeon Master's game? I think you'll be surprised where it takes you. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. I know this is annoying, so I'm gonna do it quickly. If you're new to my channel and enjoyed this video, I would sincerely appreciate if you'd leave a like, comment, or if you're feeling generous, subscribe. If you want to see more content from me, then please do me a favor by sharing this video with a friend or on socials. You have no idea how much it helps. Really quick, I'd like to thank Cub Like Foot for allowing me to use their footage of the main campaign in this video, as it saved me another 10-hour playthrough and was super kind of them. I'll leave a link to their channel in the description. For anyone that's been following me for a while, yes, I know I have not uploaded in a while, and I am sorry. I had a really rough go of things in my personal life that severely impacted my creative drive, but I'm feeling better every day and will go through 2022 strong with uploads for you. Also, if any of you want to share this video, that would be really cool. Haha, please. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Love ya. Mwah.